Hi, it's time for our daily lectionary reading for Tuesday, the 19th of April. What do we have today? Let's see. We have Psalm 118 again, verses 1 to 2, and then 14 to 24. Then we've got Judges 4, 17 to 23, and then 5, 24 to 31a, cutting up on us. Then Revelation 12, 1 to 2. And usually on Tuesdays, on the second day for the Psalms, we do the message. So that's what we'll do. Thank God because He's good, because His love never quits. Tell the world, Israel, His love never quits. And you, clan of Aaron, tell the world, His love never quits. And you who fear God, join in, His love never quits. Pushed to the wall, I called to God. From the wide open spaces, He answered. God's now at my side, and I'm not afraid. Who would dare lay a hand on me? God's a strong champion. I flick off my enemies like flies. Far better to take refuge in God than trust in people. Far better to take refuge in God than trust in celebrities. Hemmed in by barbarians, in God's name I rub their faces in the dirt. Hemmed in and with no way out, in God's name I rub their faces in the dirt. Like swarming bees, like wild prairie fire, they hemmed me in. In God's name, I rubbed their faces in the dirt. I was right on the cliff edge, ready to fall when God grabbed me and held me strong. God's my strength. He's also my song, and now He's my salvation. Hear the shouts, hear the triumph songs in the camp of Israel. The hand of God has turned the tide. The hand of God is raised in victory. The hand of God has turned the tide. I didn't die. I lived. And now I'm telling the world what God did. God tested me. He pushed me hard, but He didn't hand me over to death. Swing wide the city gates, the righteous gates. I'll walk through and thank God. This temple gate belongs to God, so the victors can enter and praise. Thank you for responding to me. You've truly become my salvation. The stone the masons discarded as flawed is now the capstone. This is God's work. Rub our eyes. We can hardly believe it. This very day God acted. Let's celebrate and be festive. Salvation now, God, salvation now. Oh, yes, God, a free and full life. Go back to the NRSV. And we're in Judges now. Oh, Judges 4, 17 to 23. This is the culmination of one of my favorite stories because it's so shocking. Now Sisera had fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between King Jabin of Hazor and the clan of Heber the Kenite. And Jael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me and have no fear. So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. And time out, I forgot to introduce this. This is the fight, the end of the fight where Deborah called Barak and told him to fight against Sisera and all his chariots. And Barak said, Oh, I'll only do it if you come with me. And Deborah then told him, Deborah, who was a judge, by the way, said, Well, then we're going to win, but you won't get the credit, a woman will. And Barak met Sisera in battle, their armies, and the Israelites just trounced them. So Sisera fled, jumped out of his chariot and fled. And that's where we are here. So Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite, has said, Hey, come inside. So he turned aside to her into her tent, and she covered him with a rug. Then he said to her, Please give me a little water to drink, for I'm thirsty. So she opened up a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, Stand at the entrance of the tent, and if anyone comes and asks you, Is anyone here? Say no. But Jael, wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer into her hand. Now, this is not a tent peg like we have in modern, like that long. This is the tent peg of a desert nomad. It was probably, like this. grass, you know, down deep into the sand and into the more solid dirt. So she took a tent peg and a hammer and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground. And he was lying fast asleep from weariness, and he died. To sink in a minute. She drove the tent peg through his head and pinned him to the ground. And then as Barak came in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking." So he went into her tent, and there was Sisera lying dead with a tent peg in his temple. So on that day, God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. The sheer brutality of this story. Oh my goodness. And then we're going to continue though, right? Because we stopped at 4:17 to 23. And now we're going into Judges 5:24 to 31, which is the Song of Deborah. And now we have an excerpt of that. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Of tent-dwelling women most blessed. He asked water, and she gave him milk. She brought him curds in a lordly bowl. She put her hand to a tent peg and her right hand to the workman's mallet. She struck Sisera a blow. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. He sank, he fell, he lay still at her feet. At her feet he sank, he fell. Where he sank, there he fell dead. Out of the window she peered. The mother of Sisera gazed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofbeats of his chariots? Her wisest ladies make answer. Indeed, she answers the question herself. Are they not finding and dividing the spoil? A girl or two for every man. Spoil of dyed stuffs for Sisera. Spoiled of dyed stuffs embroidered. 2 pieces of dyed work embroidered from my neck as spoil. So perish all your enemies, O Lord. But may your friends be like the sun as it arises in its might. And the land had rest for 40 years. All right. Revelation 12, 1 and 2, the woman and the dragon, and then Michael defeats the dragon. A great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs in the agony of giving birth. And then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And then the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear a child, so that he might devour her child as soon as it was born. And she gave birth to a son, a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she could be nourished for 1,260 days. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but they were defeated. And there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And then I heard a loud voice in heaven proclaiming, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our comrades has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. But they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they did not cling to life, even in the face of death. Rejoice then, you heavens, and those who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you with great wrath, because he knows his time is short." Tuesday. See you later.